Hey guys, how y'all doing? My name is Mikey Burkhart, otherwise known as Mikey B3 from Neworleans, Louisiana.
What is it you do for them in a musical capacity?
So, I am a keyboardist, a vocalist, songwriter, and band leader, and also a hired gun.
Okay.
So I play with different people as well as do my own thing. So.
Gotcha. You grew up here, right? You were born here.
I did, yeah. I'm what you call a Shalmatian. I'm an Arabian. So yeah, I grew up in St. Bernard Parish, on Mink Drive in Arabi, and was there a good portion of my life till about 17, 18, and I moved around a lot, and I guess the music part of that kind of kicked in. Beginning teenage years, my grandparents, they were kind of worried I was going to quit school. They thought I was going to go to Chalmette and quit and hang out with my bad buddies.
Yeah.
And so they made me go to Holy Cross. And when I was there, it was one of those things where I just, I wasn't into sports. I wasn't into academics. I really wasn't into much of anything. And but all the kids had leather jackets.
Okay.
And I wanted one. And so
what kind of leather? Are we talking like Letterman or like biker?
No, like leather jacket. Like, in high school,
oh, leather.
the kids got the jackets.
You said leather. Okay, I got you.
And leather. And that's my accent. Anyway, it's a showman accent. Anyway, so one of my buddies one day said, man, you should join the band. You get a leather jacket in the first year, and you get to travel and leave school. And that's all I needed to hear was, I get to leave school.
Yeah.
And because I hated school. And I hated being there. And that was it. And that's kind of what sort of started me on my musical journey. I tried to play other things before that. Tried to play guitar. Didn't really know what to do with that. And growing up with my grandparents, they were old school Italians. They didn't really have any knowledge of, what a musician is or how to raise your child as a musician, all these things. They just didn't know. And so their first thought was, well, we know the young kid down the street plays guitar. We'll ask him. We'll get him to teach my grandson. And,
okay.
And it was one of those things where it was just a kid. He wasn't a teacher or things. So that kind of came and went. And then I started playing harmonica, and that drove my family nuts. So that kind of went. And of course, all this went into the closet somewhere. And then eventually, coming back around, my buddy told me to join the band. That's when I got into that. And it's funny, the first instrument that I actually loved, they put a flute to my mouth.
Okay.
And it was instant. And I went home and I said, guys, I'm in the band, I'm going to play the flute. Now, a bunch of old school Italians from St. Bernard Parish, and they were like, well, no, you can't do that. I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, that's a girl's instrument.
Okay.
And so, I was all like disappointed. And my grandmother, I guess, she went to school with Pete Fountain.
Okay.
And she's like, well, I went to school with Pete Fountain, and man, he had all the girls, and he played clarinet, and you know who Pete Fountain is. And I was like, yeah. She's like, you should do that, which I think is kind of funny because in hindsight of that, it's like, well, the clarinet isn't too much phallically different than,
That's one way of putting it.
But this is like old school, old days, early 80s, growing up in St. Bernard Parish.
Yeah.
And, there was just, a lot of backwards mentality back then,
Sure.
And so I said, okay. So that's what I did. And I learned it. I did that for 8 years. I don't really play clarinet too much anymore, although lately I've been thinking about pulling it out because I do a lot of jazz stuff now. But anyway, make the long story short, that's kind of what sent me. There was always a path to music. And, evidently my great-grandmother, she had perfect pitch and played piano. She died when she was really young, so I never met her. So that gene was in me. My mom, my dad, and my great uncle on my dad's side, they were dancers. My mom taught ballet. My dad taught jazz tap.
Okay.
I mean, he's a lawyer and a cop today. You
Wow.
You wouldn't think that.
Running again.
But yeah, so there was that, and my dad's uncle, he's my great uncle. He did choreography. He worked with people like Fred Astaire, stuff like that. So, music and rhythm was in my blood, no doubt. And I probably, looking back on it, I probably could have gone into dancing just as easily as I could have went into music. I was a pretty good dancer growing up.
If not for the Letterman jacket, huh?
Yeah, but yeah, they didn't offer that with the Letterman jacket. And so anyway, but, so all of a sudden, I was in the band. And, it was pretty amazing, being in I did the marching band stuff, but I was also in a symphonic band. And I never forget, this room full of all these, young musicians, and everybody had different instruments, woodwind instruments, brass, everything. And, the first day we tried to play whatever song, and it was horrible.
Sure.
But by the end of the year, it was just magic.
You got to see it come.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so, that kicked it off. And then what really changed my world kind of moving forward is I was in high school, I was in the band, and I had the pleasure of going to school with Michael Lemler and Matt Lemler. Well, Michael Lemler today is George Porter's keyboardist.
Okay.
And Matt Lemler is a very, famous, well-known jazz composer. Both of those guys, they were gigging when they were 13, 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And
what was your age when you started this, when you picked up the clarinet? You were in high school,
well,
huh?
clarinet let's see, that was, I want to say, 7th grade.
Oh,
like
okay.
the first 2 years of middle school. I was young when I graduated. I was only 17, so I was, God, what was that, like, I was maybe 13, 12, 13
So you
years
played
old.
that all throughout high school?
I did. Well, that and, but that's when I started keys and some other things. So I walked in one day, it was my freshman year in high school, and I saw Michael Lemler was sitting there playing piano, and just like, he was a prodigy then, blew my mind. And was talking about the gig that he just did with my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, 12, 13-year-old kid, 14-year-old kid, and you're like, what?
It's your peer that just finished doing something with the adults, like he was one of them.
And making money, and and I'm like, wow. And I don't know what it was, but I wound up calling my dad. Now, I didn't live with my dad, I didn't live with my mom, like I said. My grandparents raised me. And they got divorced when I was really little, and without getting into all that, it was one of those things, and the grandparents just wound up taking me. But I remember I called my dad, and God bless him, I love him, but man, he squeaks when he walks. And, when it comes to money, and I don't know how, but I called him and I convinced him to buy me a piano.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that was the beginning to me becoming a keyboardist. Mm-hmm. And, and I did it a little bit in high school. And then when I got towards my junior, senior year in high school, I actually switched from clarinet. I still play clarinet in the symphonic band and all that, but in the marching band, I switched over to xylophone.
Well, I was going to ask, because that makes it more difficult. I understood in the beginning why it was not keys before you told us that it took a while for you to get to that, but I understood it because it's a marching band initially. And initially, for a lot of people that I talked to, the band instructor is going to suggest an instrument where he needs one. Especially for a new guy.
Well, I think there was that, and then I think what I remember was I was really at that time, I was enjoying the keyboards, and there wasn't anybody really doing the xylophone, and I was like, well, that's kind of like a keyboard, and and so I was like, ooh, and I thought it would be cooler, and so so I kind of switched over, and I did that while I was marching. And then, did clarinet, in a symphonic band. And then, I was doing some stuff on the keyboards. I did a couple of things in the jazz band. Not a whole lot, but some of it. And so that was, I guess you could say the beginning to all of that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sent me sort of on a path.
Now, let me ask, in high school, because you got to play in symphonic band as well, right?
Yeah.
When you switched over to xylophone, was there a place for you there as well?
No, not in symphonic band. That was strictly marching. They already had guys. So back then we had Mike Orcus, and he as a band teacher, and the symphonic band for Holy Cross back then, the music department back then was real serious.
Yeah.
And it was like a full symphonic band. So the guys that played drums, they were also playing, they were playing xylophone, they were playing all the percussions. So I didn't have that spot. That position was already kind of taken.
Understood.
And by the time I got to my senior year, I was a first chair on clarinet. So, I kind of worked my way up, and I was in there, so it was cool. But I was always someone that did multiple instruments somewhat, and I think that was just a part of me also just kind of searching. There, even then, like looking even now, so some kids, when they get an instrument, they want to sit down and read the music, and that's what they were into. The biggest thing for me was, especially with the piano, with the keyboards, is when I went home, I wasn't trying to pull out a sheet of Mozart or something like that, or a jazz tune and read it and just go. My love was to just sit down and just improvise.
Sure.
And create. And I think part of that was maybe as a young man, my way of just escaping.
Yeah.
From whether it was family or, whatever.
Were y'all on paper at school? I mean, you were reading notes at school, right?
Oh yeah, I was.
It's just kind of, it's a detour.
Yeah.
It's kind of a way to decompress, like you said.
Yeah, it was. And so, and again, I never thought in my mind, I never saw myself out of high school becoming a professional musician.
Yeah.
Or, gigging for a living or anything like that. Or, even being a writer.
Well, then why stick with it after you get the Letterman jacket?
Well, this is true, but I guess, I guess I loved it, but I didn't realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even till this day, sometimes when you're a professional musician, there are many days where you're like, why am I still doing this?
Right. Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that being said, yeah, so that was high school, and that kind of set me on a path. And then when I graduated, like I kind of, it was one of those things, like, I had a teenage job, and I wasn't necessarily trying to play music. I was like anybody else, just trying to figure life out. I'm no longer, in high school. I started to go to college. I didn't go the first year. I kind of waited. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Sure.
And then somewhere in the middle of all that, I kind of got into my rock and roll phase. Like, I was listening to like a lot of heavy metal. Mm-hmm. And not so much punk rock stuff. I mean, I like some of it, but I was really into metal, and because that's when like Metallica and all this stuff was kind of first really coming out.
What year did you graduate?
87.
Okay.
And I was, like I said, I was only 17, so I was young.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and then I remember I bought a keyboard. I got my first synthesizer, and I loved it, and I got into a punk rock band.
Okay.
Called I.D.S, Insane Dreads of Society.
All right.
And and this is like before like the Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails, or any of those type of things where they started putting electric music in with the heavy metal. And God, I wish I'd have had the idea then, because if I'd have known, I'd have been like, shit.
Hindsight, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I was in a punk rock band, and so my first gigs were like at the VFW hall, on Elysian Fields and stuff, playing to a bunch of kids stage diving and all that.
Too many times I've talked to musicians, and they paint the scene back in the late '80s, and that's where a lot of bands got their start. But it was more common to see a rock band playing at the VFW. It was an all ages event where the family could bring the kids and you could still rock out, and it's just something that's scarce these days, and it's a shame,
Yeah, well, I mean, not to get too in depth in that, but I think part of that is New Orleans, the New Orleans scene. I mean, there's a plethora of different styles of music all over Louisiana. People just tend to think about New Orleans, and they don't think the outskirts. They don't think about Louisiana and everything that goes around all that.
Sure.
You know, people that grow up in the bayou, people that grow up in the city, people that grow up in the country.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, and then we have our immigrants here and people that aren't from here that migrated here, you know. I mean, there's so much different music here. But unfortunately, and even though it is gigged in different places, when it comes down to New Orleans is a little bit fishbowl mentality.
It is.
And, you know, and unless it's like, you know, the Dr. John, the Meter kind of thing, you know, the Professor Longhair, that kind of thing, there are a lot of bands that don't get a chance to play in some of the more popular clubs right here in town just because they don't fit in that mold.
Yeah, I think venues go for what's hot because they don't really have a choice financially speaking. But what's interesting to me is we've seen how Hollywood South became a thing down here, and it's because of the terrain. You can drive an hour or two in any direction, and you could go from the swamp to the hills to the forest. The same goes for the music geography because of what you're talking about, because you can stay right in the heart of New Orleans and listen to jazz. You could drive an hour or two south or southwest and listen to Cajun music and Creole music, or you could drive an hour or two northwest and hear country music, you know.
So there was that, you know, and then, you know, and going back to the rock thing, so again, my background was rock. Mm-hmm. I mean, even growing up, I guess, you know, as a kid, that's another thing I guess I didn't really say is, you know, growing up with my grandparents, I mean, they played a lot of old school stuff, and there was some jazz in there, but they listened to a lot of different things. Anything from country to rock, you know, a lot of radio play, stuff like that, you know, which was New Orleans music back then too. So I had all that ingrained in me. And then also, when I was really younger, we had a maid, Irene, and she was from the Ninth Ward, black woman from the Ninth Ward, you know, and she raised me a lot because she babysitted me a lot. Yeah. She watched me a lot. And, you know, used to babysit me in the Ninth Ward. And this is, you know, when the Ninth Ward, you know, wasn't gentrified, you know. And it was all Motown.
Yeah.
All Motown.
Nice.
And so I had a lot of that injected into me as well. And so I think, you know, I guess I'll repeat myself, but from an early age, I had a lot of stuff put into my head.
Yeah.
But the one thing I didn't really get much of once I started playing music and when I first started gigging was I wasn't doing a lot of the New Orleans funk stuff. I wasn't doing that. Mm-hmm. You know, it was rock and roll. And so eventually what wound up happening, what really, really, really set it off as me being a professional musician was, and this is moving a little further, after the punk rock thing that kind of died out, and then I went to school a little bit here and there. Didn't really finish college. School was just never, it was always hard for me. I don't know. I was just not one of those people that wanted to be in school. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to do all that. I mean, I wish in hindsight today it would have been different, but it is what it is. And then at some point, I was waiting tables a lot, and when they opened up Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, which is no longer here anymore.
Yeah.
And eventually I worked my way up and became a manager. And we had Eddie Bo, who, is no longer with us, but, one of the top, 5 New Orleans pianists of their time, Mm-hmm. And he was right there with Booker and Long Hair and all these other guys, and has written, a plethora of music. And even till this day, there are people that are still doing his music, doing tributes to him. Matter of fact, there's one coming up actually recently at Tips. That's Art Neville and Eddie Bo, the music of that.
Okay.
So, give you an idea. Eddie played there 5 days a week, and it was him and just a drummer. And and they had this old baby grand piano there, and it was so out of tune. So Eddie played in the same keys like over and over again all day long, and my music ears picked up on it, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah, bad. So, nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. I mean, no, the music was great, but it was just like, does anybody realize that he's playing in like the same two keys all day long? Is nobody not hearing that? And so we had a management meeting, and I said, guys, can I get him a keyboard where he can be in different keys and everything? And so I went and talked to him, and he's like, yeah, as long as it's 88 keys, and and it waited. I said, okay, cool. So I went and got him this, synth electric keyboard or whatever it was in its day from Neworleans, rented it, and brought it to him, and he was like, well, how do I work this thing? And so I turned it on and, hit the buttons and, just started playing. And man, I really wasn't all that great or anything then. I could kind of play. I had taken some lessons, prior to that. I remember my first teacher was this lady around the corner from me, and I did maybe 2 lessons with her. She was so rigid, she used to sharpen pencils, and so the piano players, traditional classic, you're supposed to play like this with your wrists up. So she would put sharpened pencils under my wrist.
Get out.
And dude. And I never forget that. And I was just like, and I walked out of the house after the second lesson. I said, man, fuck this shit.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Who in the hell do you think you are? And I wasn't playing that. So I never went back. And, but anyway, so, so I'm going to play, and I'm showing Eddie, and he's like, man, you can play. And I was like, no, man, I'm okay. No, you can really play. And I'm like, well, thanks. And so I never forget one night, I'm managing, it's nighttime, and Eddie's playing, and he, he's talking on the mic, and he goes, guys, we're going to get up a very special guest, and guess what? He works here, and he's the manager. We're going to bring up Mr. Michael Burkhart. He never told me this. Dude, this is not planned, nothing. And I'm just like,
froze for a moment.
I was scared to death, and I'm like, I said, hey, he's like, listen, don't be afraid. I'm going to do the left hand. You can do whatever you want in your right hand. Just do what you do.
It's like skydiving with the instructor at first.
Yeah, and I mean, and so, and bam, and he would get me to do that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy only saw me play one time, and, this is a legendary keyboardist, and, and all of a sudden this guy's getting me to play and telling me, you need to be doing this. This is what you need to be doing. And so I can say with being honored and privileged to say that, Eddie Bo was one of my first teachers, real teachers in New Orleans music.
Yeah.
In New Orleans piano. And that is when I said, oh, okay. And
what do you think, man? It was a respect that you had for him as a musician because you got to listen to him for so long. You realized what caliber he was, so you trusted his word. I mean, I can only imagine what it is to be touched by somebody that is truly talented.
It was all of that, and just I don't know. It was all of that, and and just it was all that, and his kindness.
Yeah.
There's been several musicians in this town over the years, that are really well known, big time musicians, and have seen me play. And I mean, man, there are a plethora of musicians in this town. There are guys, I mean, my God, I mean, I can play, and there are guys that and as far as I'm concerned, shit blow me away in this town.
Yeah,
there's so much talent and beyond. And prodigies, and all that. And so, but that being said, there have been, really well-known musicians in this town that have taken the time to go, hey man, I really like what you do. You need to stick with what you're doing. You need to be this, and you should do this. And those are the people, and those are the reasons why I kept going.
Sure.
And helped me believe in myself to do that. And yeah, I would say that was definitely, you know, my first experience of that.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, it's amazing. And but anyway, yeah, so that, and then from there, at Margaritaville, I would play and, you know, and do stuff. And then one day, one of the managers came up to me and said, Mike, we want to put a Jimmy Buffett cover band together. Think you can help us with that? And I went, sure.
Yeah.
And I put that together and I turned myself into the keyboardist. Now, by this time, I'd already been playing. I'd started playing with a southern rock band called Sweet Pea's Revenge. And then, ironically, also, like, people that were playing a lot then, like Irene Sage, Mike Darby, Darren Murphy, Pope on bass. He's no longer with us. That genre of musicians, New Orleans musicians, Kenny Holiday, who's no longer with us. I mean, one of the greatest slide players ever.
Yeah.
You know, all those guys were gigging the scene. And again, it was still kind of I mean, the New Orleans stuff was there, but it was also a rock scene. And all of those guys had, you know, they were always gigging, and you know, this is when Checkpoint Charlie's was like the place to play.
Sure.
You know, not just, you know, there wasn't half the clubs there are now. And all those guys would get me to come and play and let me sit in or do their open mic jams.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really started getting into something. And anyway, so I started doing the Buffett band. And that's when I started singing because I had to do backup vocals.
Yeah.
So that's when I started getting into that. Although, believe it or not, back then I was petrified to sing leads.
I mean, you came a long way in a short time as far as getting over any anxiety.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You were kind of thrown into it, but he kind of walked you through it, so that was kind of him. But in a short period of time, you're on stage in front of people almost immediately for the first time.
Yeah.
And then while you're trying to get used to that, you're starting to step out on your own. And,
yeah, I mean,
and now singing vocals.
Absolutely. We can, I mean, it's pretty much safe to say, I mean, I can say, one could say I started early, but in my opinion, I started late because, you know, like I said, when I graduated from high school, there was a big, you know, lull period there, you know, nothing. And by the time I was, you know, into like 22, 23, 24, I believe, you know, that's when actually the keyboard thing really started coming out. That's when I did the Buffett cover band. That's when I got into Sweet Pea's Revenge. So, you know, I was, you know, almost 24, 25. By then, most musicians are already, you know.
It's debatable. What were you doing with was it I.D.S, the punk band?
Well, that was keyboards too, yeah.
Yeah, but so keyboard in a punk band, that's why I'm asking. I'm like, what were you doing?
Yeah. The idea was to have like a punk rock band, but like with keyboard sounds. And it was, I don't even remember the band leader's name, shoot. But it was kind of his idea.
And what year we're talking, roughly?
So that was probably, I want to say between 87 and 90. Maybe?
Because if you think about it, there was like a new wave of punk that washed through, even up northeast, like in New York, where punk came from.
Yeah.
Like Blondie and bands like that, and they had some synth elements, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was definitely starting to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, 80s music, you know, obviously was, you know, was very synth heavy.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and bleeding into the 90s, that was definitely bleeding over into the more heavier rock scene. So yeah, that's kind of, but you know, but I was doing like I was using really heavy sounds and stuff. It was, you know.
Would you go so far as to say that it was industrial?
Would I what now?
Would you go so far as to say that it was industrial? Like when you think of like Nine Inch Nails, they have synths, but I mean it's real punchy, hard saw.
I would say
synths.
I would say yes, but I don't know. if at that point I could. It wasn't called that yet.
They didn't have industrial back then, right? So, it's kind of before its time.
Yet,
the reason I was kind of parsing it out is because, I mean, we kind of went over the fact that you got into the public performance aspect abruptly, but you kind of fast-tracked us through what you did musically, and it started off in symphony and band, and it ended up in New Orleans jazz, but kind of roxy, like boogie woogie basically, and in the middle there was some punk there. So I mean, it was kind of covering a lot of, and in your personal life you were listening to rock and roll, you know what I'm saying? And your grandparents listened to a lot of different things as well. So I mean, it was always there, but as far as your musical expression, you were kind of going through different phases. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we're talking about in a span of like 10 years or so, if that, from like, 17 to 27,
Yeah, and realistically, I mean, I would, in all honesty, like I would say between 24 and 30, that's, when all of a sudden I went from being, nobody knows who I am at all in this town to all of a sudden I'm in front of the world.
Was that weird?
That was exciting. I mean, the only thing I guess I wouldn't call it weird. It was more just like, what do I do to catch up? Like it was just.
You're gonna have a bit of imposter syndrome, right? You're like, am I good enough to be doing this, or I'm not as good as this guy, or things like that. But,
sure.
I guess by weird, I was sort of saying like, to be in the public eye. I don't know that it counts as much down here, though, because we have musicians that come out of here that become world famous, but they can still go to Burger King. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not an issue. So
exactly.
It doesn't get weird in their personal life in that respect.
I just knew in the back of my mind. I tell you the gig that helped me deal with that.
Okay.
This is how I figured that out. Irene Sage. It was Irene and the Mics one night, and. It was actually the first time Irene called me up. And at this point, I had a Chop B3. My first organ was Art Neville's B3. It was a Chop B3. And I bought it from Dave Tarantello, the organ doctor. And his warehouse used to be right over there by the old pumping station.
Okay.
You know where the old rehearsal spaces and all that was?
Yeah.
So... And I used to go in there and I'd stare at all the organs and stuff, and I didn't have any money. But I would just hang out in there because I just wanted to,
Sure.
And one day he said, Mike, are you ever going to buy anything? And I said, well, if I could just, pay monthly, and he's like, wait a second. And he walked in the back and he just moved all his shit out the way. And there was this black and silver box, and he pulls it out. And he flips it over and puts it up and opens it up, and it's an organ. He pulls out a Leslie. He's like, look, you give me $150 a month for such and such a time, whatever it was, and this is yours, and you can take it today.
Wow, okay.
And it was Arts.
Okay.
Of all people.
Yeah.
So I used to take that, and I had a 4-door Cutlass Supreme, and I would open my trunk and I would stick the chop in the trunk, kind of sticking out, take my Leslie, pick it up, put it on top of the trunk, and bungee cord around it.
That's awesome.
And I used to drive to the open jams. And that was how I was trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. And I remember I went in one day, and Irene and I have been knowing each other since we were 5 years old.
Wow.
And she's one of my dearest and closest friends till this day. Somebody if I had a music question or a business question, I would call her and ask, And but anyway, I walked in and she was playing. I was like, Irene, I got an organ. And she's like, really? And she was like, you have it here? And I was like, it's in my car. She was like, you want to play? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, go get it. And she walked up to the band. She's like, guys, y'all got to all move over. I'm putting my friend up there. And remember Mike Darby at the time, Mike's kind of a firecracker, and he was like, man, I ain't moving my shit, blah, blah, blah. He was all pissed off, and the band was all pissed off because they didn't know who I was, none of the shit. And so Irene said, well, look, I tell y'all what, y'all move your shit, or I'm not getting back on the fucking stage. And she just sat there.
That's a cosign. Yeah.
And they moved their shit.
Nice.
And so I got up, and I remember Darby looked at me and he goes, "What you got?" And I said, "What you got?" And it was at that moment I was just like, I cannot show any fear here. I cannot let these people know what I know and what I don't know. And now that I've done that, I need to put up a shut up.
Yeah.
And so we started playing, and what I realized was I found immediately, and this is going back from playing woodwinds, because everything's by ear. I mean, all musician stuff's by ear, but
yeah.
I just remembered trying to find the holes where nobody else was.
Okay.
And play there, and be rhythmic, and then do it in a way that makes them sound good. And when they look at me and they smile, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Sure.
And that, from that moment on, I guess, you know, everything I tried to do was not to step on anyone, find the empty hole, make it mine, put my voice in it, but make sure that it's complementing what everybody else is doing.
Sure. And
that set the tone for how I play and still play till this day. Yeah, so that's kind of been my mantra, you know,
Sure.
you know, this whole time. And then, of course, after that, somewhere after that, that's when, in that time frame, I played with Sweet Pea's Revenge. It was a southern rock band. And from there, I met D-Rock, who was the lead singer for the Revealers. I don't know if you remember those guys. I just did a gig with them the other night. You know, and they, at that time frame, like New Orleans' #1 reggae band. Yeah. They were doing Tip Patinas, they were doing Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest. You know, bringing in, you know, 350 people, you know, at Cafe Brazil, when Cafe Brazil was still open.
Right.
And I met him, and his keyboard player, who was the songwriter, King Sweets, saw me and heard me play, and he just loved what I did. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of funny. Right around that same time, I had a falling out with Sweet Pea's Revenge. I don't know, and so they let me go. I wasn't in a band, and it was kind of funny because I played harmonica then and keyboards in that band.
I didn't know harmonica was a thing because you said you kind of picked it up and put it down, trying it out when you were a kid.
I did. When I got into the Southern rock band, my keyboard playing was okay. And those are the guys that said, "Man, you should have a B3," which is one of the things that inspired me.
I was going to ask that. Why? That's huge, but I get it, yeah.
I didn't even know what a B3 was, and my only experience before B3 was Billy Ayuso. I tried out for his band. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know how to turn the B3 on at his house. It was pretty funny. And so I didn't get the gig. It was pretty funny, but that's kind of where that kind of came from. And I remember English Bob. You know English Bob? He passed away recently. Keyboardist.
Oh no.
Played with John Mooney for years. Okay. An amazing keyboardist. And he used to take his keyboard and run it through a Leslie.
Okay.
And so when I saw him do that, that's kind of how I went in that direction. And I got a Leslie, and then eventually I got the Chop and another Leslie, and that's kind of how that happened. But, so yeah, the Southern Rock Band, I didn't have a B3 yet. My aunt bought me a new keyboard. It was a gift to me, and it had a really nice organ sound on it. And that's when I started doing that. But anyway, D-Rock and King Sweets saw me play, and they liked me, and Sweets wanted me in the band. And they were already an 8-piece band then. And they pulled me in, and initially I was supposed to do horn parts and synth parts.
Okay.
And
what did they see you play on, if you don't mind? Like
they saw me with the Southern Rock Band.
And
with Sweet Pea's Revenge.
And in that band you didn't have the B3 yet? You were on a synth?
I was doing synth, but I was doing organ patches.
So they saw you on the synth first, and that's why they thought it would be a fit. I got you.
Yeah. And so anyway, but we were playing, and by that point, I started gravitating towards a B3 sound, and it was kind of getting away from the piano stuff and all that. And D-Rock, the band leader, who was also, he's an ex-drill sergeant, for the Marines.
Okay.
So, he knows how to, like, notice strengths in people and how to harness that.
Makes sense.
And he heard me playing, and bubbling and skanking. And he's like, Mike, I think you should focus on that.
Hey, have you heard about Neworleansmusicians.com? It's a place where articles, music videos, interviews, and streaming music from Louisiana musicians can be found. Fans can join free. Music business professionals can join free too. And Louisiana musicians can join for free as well. It's also the place where Louisiana bands go to network and get free promotion. We've definitely got plenty, like this band. Check them out.
Zombies, they're good as you. Zombies, they're good as new. Zombies, they're always nice to meet you. Zombies, they're good as you.
Just don't worry about all the horn parts and all that, man. You just do the organ. Sweets will do piano and you do organ. And I said, oh. And so that was really the beginning towards the whole Mikey B3 thing.
Finding your sound, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, today, don't get me wrong, I play, all keyboards. I'm not just one thing.
Well, a session musician has to. I understand
right.
that. Yeah.
But at that point, I was like, oh, yeah. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that whole thing started. And then eventually, like, I got the, arts organ, and I had that thing for years, a long time. Katrina, sadly, ruined that one. Otherwise, I'd still probably have that organ till this day. But anyway, that was that. And so, yeah, I'm playing with the Revealers, and I went from being nobody to, I'm at Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest, everything. And that was that. And at that point, people started noticing me, and they started seeing me.
Yeah.
And I started getting asked to do other gigs and do more things. And my palette for more genres of music started growing. Then I got thrust into, funk and New Orleans music and what that's all about. And so, and here I am today, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously a lot more to it, but
sure.
I could go on and on about it, but it's been interesting. And for a guy that, I went to school somewhat, and I learned how to read somewhat, but it was in clarinet, really. I look at the keyboard thing as something I really taught myself, more or less, and so I consider myself more of a self-taught musician than a trained musician.
Yeah.
I didn't finish music in college or any of that stuff, but I think I've come pretty far and I've accomplished quite a bit.
Sure.
What
was supplied to you when you were in band playing xylophone?
The xylophone.
That was it. Sheet music, nothing like that. How to, none of that stuff.
Well, yeah.
I asked because I wonder. I'll put it to you like this: like there's a saxophone player, Uli Adlaken, and he knew nothing but playing in band.
Right.
And forgive me, Uli, but I forgot where you came from. He's from like Norway or something. But anyway, in school over there, band is not even an extracurricular. It's something that is separate. Mm-hmm. So he would spend his own time outside of school to go to this band, but everything was sheet music. So when he gets here and starts to play and starts to improvise like you like to do, it was like getting his wings. It's like a whole nother world. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? And I guess playing by ear and things, whereas you're kind of the opposite, it sounds like, because you didn't really come up on sheet music. You had a taste of it young, but
I did, yeah. I mean, I read
was
sheet music with clarinet, and that was treble clef. And then when I got the xylophone, it was only like the last 2 years. And I honestly, I think I improvise most of it. I mean, you know, in the band they give you the little sheet of music. You got a little flip folder and you read it.
Sure.
But honestly, by that point, I was more into improvising.
Yeah.
And I mean, even still to this day, if you ask me what I'm best at, and that's it. You know, I've never been the note for note guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, granted, I can do parts in certain things, and I've had to do that in certain groups. But I don't think I've ever played a single song the same twice. That's cool. That's just who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, even, you know, I mean, if you come and see, like with my band, if you came to one of my live shows, it's going to be different every time.
Awesome.
And, you know, there's always going to be lots of jamming. I mean, you know, I guess at heart, you know, I'm a rocker and a jam band guy, so to speak, you know. Even though I do a lot of different things, that's probably, if I had to narrow it down, that's kind of
when you're saying rocker and jam bands, for those guys out there, are we talking, and obviously it's going to have New Orleans influence.
Sure.
Is it like boogie woogie, like I was describing?
Well, I wouldn't call it boogie woogie. Boogie woogie's more, to me, that's more blues. That's more stride piano. Or more ding 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 ding.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm more rock.
Okay.
Like, you know, like Deep Purple kind of thing.
Okay.
Or, you know, I mean, I do stuff. So, like the Meters, I guess you could say I do stuff like that too, but I'm just a little bit more of an edge. Sure. I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say boogie woogie. It's a little different. Sure. Not that I haven't done stuff like that, but yeah. You know, I'd say rock, or like if I'm gonna say like jam band, you know, more like, you know, like String Cheese Incident, that kind of thing, you know, Fish. Not so much the Grateful Dead. I kind of skipped that. Like, I wasn't really, when everybody was into the Dead, it drove me nuts. I didn't really care.
I've ran through them a few times, man, and I'm not going to lie. I hate to say it because they have so many devout followers, but the bug never bit me, you know, and I came into this world on the tail end of that, so it really kind of
I found myself in those years, I was more gravitated towards music that had energy, moved a lot, and was fast. Now, I love to dance too, so I also liked stuff that had that, you know, it made me want to do this kind of thing, you know. But even then, so matter of fact, jazz, it's kind of funny. I sing jazz today, right? Like I sing jazz at Quarter Two Sisters every day.
Yeah, Quarter Two Sisters.
And in my 20s, if you would have put on jazz that was like ding, 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 dude, it drove me nuts. It made my heart rate go up, and I like wanted to leave the room. Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't get it. Yeah. I didn't understand it. It didn't move me. You know. Well, I mean, whereas today, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, throughout your life, you've gone through so many different genres, like we were talking about earlier. But in your personal life, what you were listening to, not playing, let's say high school, shortly after high school, was intense. Like you were talking about bands like Metallica.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It was, and it's funny that you. So you mentioned Deep Purple, which had a prominent keyboard in the music around then, or shortly before then. They had a band like the Doors. They didn't even have a bassist.
Oh yeah.
Their keyboard stood in for the bass. So, and it's funny because you talk about how finding the pocket is your thing, right? Yeah. And you can either be a keyboard player, can either be in the pocket supporting the band itself, or it can take a more prominent feature in the music itself. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's very versatile. So I mean, you had that.
Yeah, and I would, you know, obviously, you know, the earlier part of my career, a lot of that was me probably being more of a pocket player, backing people and learning. Yeah, definitely. If I look back on my favorite bands, if I gave you like the top 5, just from my teens and going towards my early adult years, it would have been Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, probably number 1. you know, as far as the classic rock is concerned, T-Rex. I used to love T-Rex too. I was not into the Beatles.
Okay.
Didn't listen to that. And then there was all the heavy metal bands, you know, and the thrash bands. And so, yeah, that was, you know, that was kind of my thing. And then, you know, growing up in Chalmette, too, I mean, dude, that was a rock metal town.
Yeah.
Man. You know, that was, you know, a bunch of hey bras with long hair. You know what I'm saying? Driving Corvettes, you know, and IROCs and Z28s, you know, and that kind of thing, you know. So, like, yeah, that's, you know, and, you know, that's all Bayou Marsh country. Mm-hmm. You know, so I got that in me.
Yeah.
You know?
It comes through no matter what. It seeps through your music. You can't help it, and you're usually better for it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so as well. Where were you on like the wave of British heavy metal that came through, I guess, shortly after the high school days and
well, you know, obviously with some of the punk rock and the metal stuff, you know, and, you know, like, you know, Billy Idol and, you know, some of that stuff. I mean, I definitely listened to a lot of that. Some of the punk rock bands, obviously. Yeah. You know, a lot of those bands from Europe, you know. And then you had stuff like Susie and the Banshees. And, you know, there was also some of that stuff. You know, the goth aspect that came from some of that stuff. You know, so there was a lot of that in me, too. Yeah. You know, and matter of fact, it's kind of how I dress. I don't think I started kind of dressing up and changing roles like that until like I got just old enough to where I could start going to clubs, you know, and then, you know, and I'm looking at all the pretty girls and I'm going, well, I don't know if this girl's going to talk to me while I'm in my black heavy metal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I definitely went through a lot of phases and changed a lot of hats. And, you know, but that definitely, today, definitely defines me as a musician. I think I've had a lot of people tell me in the last year and a half, if I have any kind of reputation in this town, I think it's that I'm able to do a lot of different things. You know, am I the best at all that? I don't, you know, no, of course not. You know, am I a master of all of them? Hell no, you know. But I'm definitely a jack of a lot of trades.
Yeah, being versatile is how you stay above water, honestly.
Well, in this town, yeah. You know, very few of us can make a living just playing in our original project. Yeah. You know, and, you know, thank God for it. I mean, look, I'm like right now, I'm the head musician at Quarter Two Sisters Jazz Brunch. I never went to school for jazz. I never trained in all that. If you'd have told me less than 5 years ago that I'd be this head guy booking all these jazz guys, you know, a lot of which went to school for jazz and, you know, and all this other stuff, and, you know, and I'm hiring them and I'm working with them and I'm a jazz singer because I'm more of a singer in that category than I am a keyboard player. Oh yeah, that gig I don't even do keys. I play a conga. Yeah. And I sing.
Cool. Yeah, I wanted you to talk about it because you kind of brought us into present day, you know.
Oh yeah. So that gig, more or less, it was after Katrina. It took me a couple of years to get back home. Yeah. I lost everything. I was homeless. I was living in a FEMA trail in Mississippi illegally, and you know, working out there with FEMA. While I'm living in one of their trailers illegally.
Right, yeah, they did employ a lot of people.
I was the guy that watched them pick up all the trash and all that other stuff. Sure. And anyway, I moved back to New Orleans, and man, you know, life at that point was just rough, man. I mean, I lost everything. I was gone for 2 years. Yeah. It took me forever to get back home, and man, I was just broke. I was borrowing money, you know, to pay my rent, everything, you know. And a couple of my friends waited tables at Quarter Two Sisters, and they knew I had waiting experience from my younger years, and I was good at it. And so, Mike, you need a job, bro. And so I started waiting tables, and I would occasionally get up and sing with the jazz bands. Now, I didn't sing jazz. I'd be like, hey, you guys know this song? And a lot of those musicians, they were so excited to be doing something else besides just, trad jazz.
Okay.
And, that's one of those gigs where that's all you pretty much predominantly do. And you're doing that, those guys are doing that 5, 6, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of doing now.
Yeah.
So it gets monotonous.
Yeah.
It gets old. And so to get a chance to do something different, and the band leader would let me. And so the bosses, took notice of that. And then around this time, of course, I'd already, I had some bands that I was playing with, and one of the bigger names was the Wild Magnolias.
Okay.
And I got to do the last 3 years with original Big Chief Bo Dallas,
Wow.
and then his son, Gerard, who also goes by Bo Dallas, took that over. And we did a Chip for Stall commercial. You know the Chip for Stall commercials?
Chip for Stall, yeah.
Yeah. So the Wild Magnolias got petitioned to do one of those commercials.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
I'm on 2 cuts of that. And so Chip for Stall happens to also be a member of, the owners of that establishment. They have a men's group, and Mr. Forstall is involved in that. They saw me on the Chip for Stall commercial and saw me playing, and they were like, "Wow!" And so they thought, "Well, hell." And they know Chip, and he's a pretty successful attorney, and they're like, "Wow, Mike's on his commercial." And so they walked up to me one day and said, "Mike, can you put together another band for us here?" They were having issues, I guess, with one of the other head band leaders or something. I don't know. I didn't get too involved in it.
Sure.
But and I said, "Yeah." And I called my buddy Ed Barrett, just amazing jazz guitarist, and said, "Man, I got a gig for you. They want a jazz trio." And he's like, "Well, you gonna do it?" I'm like, "Hell no, man." I'm like, "I don't play jazz, man. I play funk and rock and reggae." I'm like, "I can't do all that."
Does it feel a bit tame, or did it seem like it was going to be too tame for you? I hate to call it that, but jazz
honestly,
is kind of a subdued...
No, it wasn't like that. It was just, I just didn't think I was good enough.
Was it okay.
And I'd seen them try to do a keyboard player there, and it didn't really work.
Right.
Because they were stationed, they had to plug it in, they can't move. And there you got to be able to go up to the tables once in a while. You need to be able to change rooms. And the wait staff, I noticed, hated them.
The musicians themselves, or the music they were playing?
Well, they just did not like that particular band. And they just didn't like it.
What happened?
And, and I was a waiter there myself. So it's like, so I'm noticing all this and I'm watching all this. And so I was like, well, what can I do that's different? So if you ask me, what is my style of playing, I like to tell people that I'm a percussionist trapped in a keyboard player's body that really wanted to be a guitarist.
Okay.
And so if you put that together, that's my approach to playing. And, very percussive.
Yes.
Going back to those filling in the holes and all of that.
Sure.
I'm playing keyboards, but I want to rock.
Yeah.
And I always have that, all that in my brain. And so, anyway, so I was like, what can I do? Well, one of the guys that used to play in one of the jazz bands there, he played trumpet, but he would occasionally pull out a snare drum and he would play percussions.
Okay.
And I always thought it would be really cool to play percussions, it's, it's another thing I wanted to do, I guess. I went out and I bought 2 bongos, 3 congas, all this shit. And so here I got this whole percussion arsenal. I just spent, I don't know, $1,500.
I was about to say you're doing well for yourself at this point, Mike.
Oh, no.
After being homeless.
I don't know if I was doing well. No, basically, dude, most of those days, dude, whatever dime I made, I spent on music.
Okay.
And that's what a lot of musicians do.
Sure.
Where we probably should be paying our bills, we're going to buy that instrument instead. You know? But that's what we love, and that's what we think we need.
Tickles the spot.
Yeah. And so anyway, so my buddy sent me 30 songs, and so I get on YouTube, because we had YouTube then, I think, and then And I'm trying to learn these jazz tunes, and I got all this percussion shit, and I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. I didn't even know how to play any of this shit. And so I just take one drum and put it in front of me, and I'm just trying to hammer it and trying to sing and trying to listen and trying to learn it. And so I just said, well, I'm going to approach this like as if it was a drum kit. I'm going to kind of play it like this, and that sounds kind of like what the drummer's doing, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And we had one rehearsal. The first rehearsal, it was hard, and my guy, Ed, looked at me and said, Jesus, Mike. And I said, give me one more week. Give me one more chance, you know. And, of course, you know, in those years, you know, my fire, my drive to, like, not fail,
sure,
you know, was huge. And so I just kept practicing, and I kept practicing. And we did another rehearsal, and he was like, okay, this is going to be all right. And, you know, and ironically then, remember I told you once upon a time I couldn't listen to fast jazz?
Uh-huh.
Well, all I wanted to do then was I needed to do everything was ding, 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 ding. It had to be fast.
It's got the energy
it just,
that you're looking
that's
for.
That's what
I
identified with.
Yeah.
And I was singing. And so what I told my guitar player, I was like, look, man, you play the melody line, my ear's pretty fast, and I'm going to figure it out. And from the years of playing clarinet, while I was kind of watching the melody line, I could look at the treble line and kind of understand where I was going.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of reading, not reading, and hearing and memorizing all at the same time while he's playing his line. And we did it, and I'll never forget, we went and tried out. And the owners both walked in, and they just started smiling, and that was that. And then their dad walked in, the big owner.
And it's a three-piece.
This is a three-piece, yeah.
Okay.
So it was me on percussion singing, guitar player, and a stand-up bass player.
Okay.
And we got hired, and that was that. And then the two sons who are running it now completely, their dad, who was still
active,
working at the time,
yeah,
he was watching me, and then it was right around Christmas, and he heard me sing Christmas songs, and he's like, I want that guy on this day and this day. And until this day, we still do Christmas Santa because he loved it so much that they give us our own special. They created this own brunch where just Santa Claus comes in and we do Christmas music all day.
Okay.
But anyway, that is how I wound up getting that gig, and I have been there 3.5 years of waiting tables, bartending, and another 16 years of playing music there.
Wow.
And in June of this year, the head musician, Amy, banjo player, she decided to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the call, and they gave me the job.
So you're running, before we started recording, you were talking about you doing payroll and everything over there.
I do everything. I make sure that, there's enough musicians with all the bands. It's not like, I book a jazz band. It's a trio. And we have our regular guys that we try to keep, on rotation.
Sure.
And then, obviously everybody's got to take breaks. The owners one day say, hey, we need 2 bands on this day, a random day. And I got to put all that together. And
even within the bands, though, you've got fluidity because you've got elements moving in and out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and
keeping
that's
it on rotation.
Every week.
Yeah,
sometimes every other day.
Juggling act.
So, yeah. And, and even for me, so there's some days, there's a new guy sitting next to me, and I'm call a song, and we just do it.
Yeah.
And it comes out the way it comes out. So it's really cool. But that's how I wound up doing that, which is interesting because that's now kind of like becoming, in all my phases of music, as a keyboard player, rocker, jam band, original, this guy, hired gun, all that. And now I'm entering a phase of my life in my 50s where, now I'm kind of becoming like this jazz singer.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that. I'm still doing the other stuff too, don't get me wrong.
We need to touch on that.
Huh?
We need to touch on some of the other things that you're doing outside.
Well, I'll tell you what, actually, got a great show coming up this week. We got Funk Fest weekend this weekend coming up. Mm-hmm. I'll be playing Friday at Funk Fest with an amazing soul funk band, Soul Project.
Okay.
And then Saturday, it's my birthday.
All right.
And I am doing Mikey B3 Band at the Maple Leaf. That's going to be from 8 to 10:30. It's an early show, which is great.
Yeah.
So people coming off the fest, so didn't go to the fest that day.
I love that
There's so much stuff going on that night.
I really like that place.
Yeah, I do too. And So yeah, I'm doing that show. Really excited about that one. Kind of using some new musicians. I've got Tommy Knapp, an amazing bassist, plays a 6-string fretless. It's phenomenal. Joseph Brewster, who's played with, oh my God, just a lot of musicians on drums. Mark Parson, he's a veteran's Bourbon Street guitarist and vocalist.
Okay.
I mean, dude's probably got 10,000 songs in his head.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to have someone like that. And then the real special treat, we have Marshall Ball saxophonist Eric Bernhardt.
Okay.
Who's from here, and he's been touring with Marshall Ball. He's our band leader for years. He and I also play together in Soul Project, which is that Friday. And he used to have a local band here called Noggin.
Okay.
And I don't know if that sounds familiar to you or not, but anyway, amazing saxophonist, amazing vocalist, and an amazing rapper.
Really?
Yeah. And we're gonna let him do a little bit of that. He's gonna be coming in. I allowed him because a lot of my music doesn't have a lot of horn stuff in it.
Okay.
It's more rock bass. It's more guitar.
Sure.
Keyboard bass. So I commissioned him. He's writing all these horn parts and everything. So it's gonna be interesting to have that. And then we have my buddy Mark Joseph. I don't know if you've ever heard the band The Big Woo.
No.
So back in the day, they were pretty huge jam band, toured all over. They're from Minnesota. They're all older now, so they pretty much more or less stay more in that area. Anyway, he's coming down in the middle of his tour with the Big Woo and some of his own stuff, and he's going to get up and play guitar with us and rock out with us as well.
Cool.
So yeah, that's coming up. And then the next thing I'm doing with Mikey B3, that's November 15th. We're doing NOLA Brewery. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. And then, of course, in between that, I'm going to be doing stuff with Royce DeCalt, all the Radiator guys. We got something coming up at Chihuahua in December. And then we're going to Costa Rica the week leading up to Christmas. We'll be doing that. I'm assuming I'm probably going to be doing some stuff too with Papa Mali. I've been doing his Shantytown Underground reggae thing, which is kind of great because it's the reggae music. When I got into Revealers, that's really where I started really working on my chops. So that's I attribute a lot of my style also to reggae music. People might not think that, but it's
a different turn for sure.
It is, but it's so percussive.
Yeah, you're right.
It's feel.
It really is percussive.
You can't really. It's one of those things you can't fake. You kind of gotta do it.
Yeah. Talk about being in the pocket. Like New Orleans music has a pocket, but if you're not in the pocket for reggae music, it just sounds like you're on a grid. It sounds terrible.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I've been there before. Years and years ago, I listened to a reggae band, and it just felt like, I don't know what it was. It was at the Maple Leaf, and there wasn't much of a crowd. I kind of felt like maybe they were disappointed too, because you kind of feed off of the crowd when you're on stage, and there wasn't any energy in the room, and you could just kind of feel it. It was falling on deaf ears, and I don't know. It was disappointing, but that pocket is so important, man. You've been overseas. You've been around with your own band and other bands, correct?
I've been to Switzerland multiple times. I've been to Norway multiple times. And then those are the two main places that I've gigged as far as overseas. I did Ascona Jazz Fest like 3 years in a row. I did that with the Wild Magnolia Indians as well. I did Norway these last 2 years also with Soul Project, the band that I'm doing Funk Fest with as well.
Yeah.
And then with Mikey B3, like I've done Florida, I've done Tennessee, I've done New York, I've done Colorado. And then I guess some of the other big tours I've done too, like outside of that, like I did 6 months on a bus with Eric Lindell back in the day, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We did the whole entire state of California. We drove all the way. We kind of went through Texas all the way up like that.
Okay.
Did that whole thing.
Yeah.
I did touring with blues guitarist Vu Davis, based out of Chicago.
All right.
Did a bunch of stuff with him. Yeah, I've played in Canada. I've gone quite a few places, and there's quite a few more that I still want to do. I've still got a lot on my bucket list. I've yet to do Japan, which I'm hoping one day I'll get there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I haven't done like London. I haven't done England, like some of those places. But we'll see. We'll get there.
Years to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where can they find your music, man?
Oh, well, you can find it everywhere. I'm on all the streaming channels: Spotify, YouTube, iTunes.
And it's under Mikey
Amazon.
B3.
Yes, you can find me on Mikey.
Okay.
B and 3. Some people would want to put a C in it, make it Mickey.
True.
Except for my first album, which was called Mikey Burkhart, is Mikey B3. And when I didn't know what I was quite doing yet. That one you'll have to find on the Mikey Burkhart.
Okay.
But if you pretty much put Mikey B3 in, you'll pretty much find me everywhere. All the streaming platforms. If you name it, I'm on it.
Sure. All right, man. Well, I sure appreciate your time. It's
been
man.
Great, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Thanks so much for having me.
Visit us again sometime, y'all.